Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Marty O'Donnell Show podcast, and this is episode number 8. I can't believe we've done 8 of these already. This week, we're going to be back talking to some of the OG Bungie Halo guys. This is a guy who goes all the way back to the Oni period, and he's one of my favorite designers. I had so much fun talking to him today. We probably won't have to edit anything out. I threatened that anything bad that he says about me, I was going to edit, but he didn't say anything bad, but we had a really good time. We talked about Oni, which doesn't get enough discussion. Oni is one of my favorite games that I have worked on. And Hardy LeBel was the lead designer, project lead, essentially. I'm not sure if he was officially called the project lead, but he was the creative director, essentially, for Oni. And then he came over to the Halo team, and we talk about that, and we talk about how important Hardy was to Halo 1 multiplayer. You wouldn't have had Halo 1 multiplayer if it hadn't been for Hardy, and that is just a fact. So you can thank him for that, and we talk a lot about that. It's almost an hour and a half long episode, so I'm not going to keep this introduction going anymore. So here we go, right into Hardy LeBel. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the great Hardy LeBel. I had my people call his people, and we finally got a thing put together so we can be on the same schedule. Your people are very nice, by the way, from what I hear.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, I keep them around mostly because they're yes men and toadies.
Toadies.
But that's...
It's important to have toadies.
Oh, I'll say. Absolutely.
Friends, I don't know what I've said prior to this, where we are right now. I had a little introduction, but I always record the introduction after the session so I can right any wrongs that have happened during the interview with the guests. So no matter what Hardy says, I've already corrected him in the introduction. So that's wow. He should know that.
I know it now. I feel like that gives me a lot of license to say pretty much whatever I want to.
It does, but we can always edit too. We've got so much power over you. It's hilarious.
Wow, you're gonna turn me into one of those talking heads, and be like, "I think Marty is a genius."
Thanks. You already gave us the content we need, so that's perfect.
Damn it! Oh, it was too quick on the draw. I was premature. All right,
Hardy LeBel. So we're back to talking with my good original game developers, the original gangsters from Bungie. But even before Bungie, he's been all over the game industry, according to the internet. So I looked him up on the internet because it's important to do this so I could be reminded of who it is I'm talking to, because I can't remember this guy at all.
Wow.
That's not true.
I know.
But
that.
I did look you up on the internet. I thought it was interesting because you are a veteran game developer of over 20 years in the game industry. I think it's well over 20 years. Am I correct? When did you start? 96, 7?
Yeah. I think it was 96. Yeah. Veteran game developer. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pushing 30 years, actually, if you think about it.
Oh, Jesus, don't say stuff like that. Like that just bums me out. You might be right. I don't keep track of such things. For me, like I'm never really thinking about how long it's been or where I've been or whatever, because I mean, it is an evergreen topic and it's always fascinating to me, the whole idea of design, the whole idea of making games. So teaching this class in game design right now, and we get to the unit on the history of games. And the students were like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear about it." I'm like, "No, we ain't gonna talk about that. Like, that's the past. I don't care about the past at all. Yeah, you want to know about the past? Go play them games. Let's talk about like the future.
What's happening right now?" Well, okay, that's cool. We can do that. But I also want to the internet says, by the way, this is what the internet says. This is AI, Wikipedia, you name it. The whole thing says that you're a game designer, a level designer, a creative director, a screenwriter. You've written books. You're a voice actor. The interesting thing, it doesn't say anything about being a sound designer. So I just thought that's interesting because...
Oh, don't you son of a bitch!
I think that pretty much confirms it, that that's the one area that you've never done. Thing one. Hardy.
I ought to hang up right now. I ought to just be like, that shit. Okay. just
What's your
oh,
story? What's your story, buddy?
I might tell the story,
Go ahead.
and may the fates be damned. So okay,
I can edit this at any point. So
oh no! All right, so look, we're sitting there, we're getting close to Halo, Goldmaster. We're getting down to the wire to try to put the game out. And Marty's been promising for months that he's going to do all the sounds for multiplayer. He's like, yeah, we'll take care of multiplayer later. I got a lot on my plate for single player music and, whatever, making the game good. Finally, my producer, my Microsoft producer comes to me with like little beads of sweat running down his forehead. And he's like, if we don't put multiplayer sounds in like soon, we might have to ship the game without them. I'm like, okay, all right. So Marty's at lunch, doing whatever Marty stuff. And so
martinis.
martinis. Ooh, yes. That's 100% on brand for you. I love that. So I'm standing at his cubicle when he comes walking back from lunch. He knows what I'm about to say. And I don't even get it out of my mouth. He literally walks up to me and he just puts his hand in my face, just like, Hardy, don't even talk to me about multiplayer sounds. I'm too busy. And I'm like, Marty, if we don't do it now, like we're toast, we're cooked. And so he, in his inimitable fashion, he walks over, he grabs his headphones and the key to the sound library. And he goes, here you go. You pick the sounds for multiplayer. And I'm just stupid enough to kind of be like, okay. So I sit down and I start, like a dummy. I'm just sitting there like, boop, 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 like, and I got my list. I made my design list of all the sounds that we're gonna need. I'm going through picking sound effects. Now, I don't know if this is part of the story that Marty, but we got to the sound of the
None
hill
of this
moving.
story is true, by the way. But anyway, go ahead. Give us your version.
The headphones upstairs, O'Donnell. Don't you test me. I'll pause this camera and walk and get the goddamn headphones. Oops, sorry. It's from probably shouldn't swear. Like this probably should be for the kids.
No,
Anyway,
okay.
so I'm picking sounds and I find this one super weird sound. I don't know what it is. It's just like this whoosh, this weird kind of sound effect. And I'm like, ooh, that's a pretty cool sound. We could use that for the King of the Hill game when the
Hill
hill's moving
moves.
from place. Yeah. And so I give them to whoever was the audio intern that you had.
Right.
Yeah. And I give them the list of sounds. I give them the sound library. I think we were using CDs at the time or whatever.
Yep,
anyway,
CDs.
And so I'm like, pull these sounds, port them to the engine. I'll hook them up in the engine after I get back from lunch or whatever. And he goes, well, that's fine. But sound number 9 is a gong missing the attack. And of course, I'm like, yeah, I know. And he goes, did you want me to fix it? And I have no idea what he's talking about. So I'm like, yeah, of course, you should definitely fix it. I mean, it's obvious. So I'm sitting there after lunch and I get back, going through the sounds. We get to sound 9, and it's just some jerk swinging a gong like the freaking Gong Show. And I'm just like, what did you do to my cool sound effect? He goes, I told you it was a gong. It was missing the attack, which anybody who knows anything about real sound means, the attack of the whatever the bong thing kind of hitting
it's the bong instead of just a
yeah.
Cooler. I agree.
So because I'm such a sanguine guy, I was just like, he's like, okay. So
anyway, I fired him. I fired him right after that, by the way. No, I didn't.
You probably started his career, and he's probably gone on to be very happy. Don't listen to this. He's not a hard ass. You guys think he probably presents himself as a hard case, but he's a big old softy.
Very softy.
Anyway, so there you go. But okay, so the reason that Marty is taunting me about this is because every single time since then, like even when Halo came out, take a look at the credits. Go ahead and look through there and see who's on the audio team, right?
Yeah.
Did Homie get any audio credit on Halo with all the awards, standing up on stage at like GDC with all the other luminaries, like, all standing up there like, yes, thank you. We couldn't have done it without you, little people. So whenever I get the chance, I'd like to say to Marty, I have a question for you. Are there any uncredited members of the Halo audio team?
See, getting credit, very complex convoluted. There's a lot of rules involved, and you don't just because you happen to pick a couple things that show up doesn't, and you didn't actually craft it into the end. You triggered it because you're the designer, but as an audio designer, not it. So we took a vote. uh
That is also a lie, ladies and gentlemen.
Jay Weinman, Adam Tooze was the intern, Adam Tooze, and the
Oh
three of us
yeah.
voted unanimously that you did not deserve a sound design credit on Halo. No, Hardy, I will apologize here now. You should have been in the credits for Halo multiplayer sound design assistant. You should have been in there as part of that.
Well,
But that was an
maybe
oversight on our part, and I will be eternally apologetic and grateful for your spectacular work on choosing sounds from the sound
please don't be
design line.
apologetic, because the fact of the matter is, like, whatever that credit is or was or might have been, it's so much more fun to have the story and talk to you about it.
I sort of agree with that, and I totally remember the talk to the hand. But if you remember, so we're going to go back in time now. And we started with the sort of fun story. These are all going to be fun stories, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, because Hardy was probably one of the most fun people I've ever worked with, and probably will ever work with. He's got a great sense of humor, which was when I talked to Alex Soropian a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the importance of having a sense of humor on a team, and as a team leader, and someone you collaborate with, you just want to be able to get along, have a sense of humor, because there's going to be times at 2 a.m. when all hell is breaking loose and nothing's going right, and if you can't figure out how to laugh about it, at least later on laughing about it, you're gonna die in the game business. So I always had fun with Hardy, but Hardy and I met. He'd already been in the game industry a bit. I'm not sure. I think you had worked on Pac-Man World '99, something.
Yeah, I worked at Activision.
Yeah.
Apocalypse, starring Bruce Willis.
Oh, cool.
And then my next gig was on Vigilante 8. I was an associate designer on Vigilante 8, which was a vehicle combat game.
Oh, cool.
And that's, I credit Peter, God, I want to say Morowitz, I think is his last name. I just only ever knew him as Peter. But is really sort of the person who showed me kind of like what a pro designer is like to work with. The guy was just a hard case. Like, he was so awesome. Anyway, so worked on Vigilante 8 for a while, and then after I was invited to seek other opportunities, not from the Vigilante 8 team, from Activision as a whole.
Okay.
I ended up at Namco, where I was working on Pac-Man World 20th Anniversary. And
wow,
when we shipped Pac-Man, right at that time, it just so happened that I was looking around trying to find something else because I didn't want to get stuck making Pac-Man 2. And I happened to see that Bungie was hiring in the San Jose area. So,
and you were living in San Jose at the time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's so you went to Bungie, what we called Bungie West. I think it was probably called Bungie West at the time. I'm assuming Michael Evans was there. Who was the project lead? What's his name? I can't remember.
Well, it was Brent Pease.
Brent Pease, yeah.
For a short period of time.
Okay.
I showed up, and Brent was the kind of person who had some ideas, but not really design chops.
Okay.
And so they hired me because they needed somebody to sort of bring some order. Chaos. That team had been kind of underway for, I think, 2.5 years. They had built a lot of technology, and they had a lot of ideas about the kind of game that they maybe wanted to build, but they really weren't sure how to turn it into a game.
Yeah.
And that's why I was brought on board. And so I spent the better part of 2 months in a conference room with Hamilton Chu.
Hamilton.
Yep, Hamilton.
I got to get him on the show too, by the way. He's like, he has gone on to fame and fortune, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
I know. I am super mad about the fact that I love his game Marvel Rivals. Like, I can't stand that I love it, but I do. So, no, God,
Son of, yeah.
not Hamilton Chu. But in any case, so we spent the two months camped out, like, and I was writing this design soup to nuts, right? Like from the top, Brent would be like, I want it to be like this, I want it to be like that. And so I wrote the whole thing down. And then right at the end of it, and I'm just going to be brutally honest, I pitched it to the team, we reviewed the whole thing, and then Michael Evans staged a coup against Brent Pease. Michael Evans went to Alex Serbian and said, "We believe in Hardy's design. We're not going to make it with that guy in charge. And so you get rid of him and put me in charge, or me and Steve Abeda and I forget who, and Hamilton, I guess, right? We're going to walk." And
Wow.
so it was a
That's the drama I didn't know about. Okay.
brutal, bloody coup one day. Like Friday, it was Brent Pease was in charge, and I was trying to kind of appease that person. And then Monday, it was me and Michael, sort of just trying to figure out how we're going to make this design that I wrote work for Oni. Uh,
Wow.
so yeah, it was pretty baller. That was perhaps one of the I don't know, interesting bits of history, and just a little bit of exposure to the fact that
Well, I had met Brent Pease probably a few months prior to me being involved with Oni. Maybe because of a Mac World that I came out to San Francisco and I stopped by the office. I was not expecting to be working on Oni because you guys had your own thing going at Bungie West. We were working on, Halo stuff. As a matter of fact, I think there was some Halo when Oni was being shown at some point at E3, maybe in 2000. We also, I think boy, I'm trying to remember how this works. Was it 2000? Had to be, yeah, because when there was some sort of interscene rivalry between Bungie Chicago and Bungie West. There always was. I mean, you guys stole the trophy one time after completely failing at winning the pentathlon. I'm pretty sure that's the accurate story. Um, but
it's
anyway, there
it's
was like
part of the story.
who's who's getting, the most sort of press time with the press. Was it the Oni or was it Halo? Halo had sort of made a little splash at Macworld. I don't remember all the stuff, but it was sort of interesting, and I didn't know if I was ever going to work with you guys. But I met Brent, and then the next thing I know is Brent's gone, and Alex and Jason came to me and they said, "We want you to go also work on Oni for music and sound design." And then many things happened that summer. We showed Halo to the world, and it was Bungie got bought by Microsoft. We were told we were all going to be moving out to Redmond, and I was told that as soon as I got to Redmond, I was going to pack up my bags and go to San Jose to work on Oni. And I had just joined Bungie, and I was the oldest, as you know. I'm by far the oldest person at Bungie.
What?
Yeah, who would have thought?
I can't believe that.
So it was quite the thing for me. As I say, I was 2000. I was 45 years old. I was no spring chicken, and moving my family. My family stayed back in the Chicago area for a couple months, while I sort of got things ready in Redmond, and then I wasn't there. I was down in staying at the Olive Mill, what was it called? Do you remember the name of that hotel down there?
I don't remember, but I know where it was. I could probably drive there, but
Yeah,
I don't remember the name of the place.
the Olive Grove something. Anyway, I stayed there for weeks at a time and worked with you guys. And I got to say, it was really fun. It was all, I mean, everything was scrappy. It was like seat of the pants. We got to do this thing now because we're under pressure to figure out a way to ship this thing. And I was introduced to the game, and I was fascinated by the game. Oni was such a unique and beautiful, cool game. I got to say, it's one of the games I'm extremely proud of, and I feel like it's underrated. I'm not kidding. It's underrated because most people who have played it, or a lot of people who have played it on the PlayStation. And the version for the PlayStation 2 was not the version that we shipped for PC and Mac. I personally might have preferred it the best on the Mac because I'm a Mac guy. I thought it just played just smooth as butter. And the animation, Steve Abeda's animation, should have won every award in the world. He single-handedly did just amazing things. And I'm assuming now, tell me if this is wrong. I'm not sure what kind of game it was intended to be before you got there, but did you add that sort of fighting element and really refine the fighting, the moves, the sort of not Mortal Kombat? What was your game of choice? The fighting game?
Street Fighter.
Street Fighter, of
Street
course.
Fighter.
Yeah. Street Fighter.
Yes. I mean, no, I don't want to take full credit.
Okay.
The concept originally,
like you usually do, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Like normally, but on this rare exception, let me just be a little more magnanimous. Uh, so the original concept was that it was going to be kind of an anime style action game, third person, that integrated fighting and guns. And Steve and honestly, Michael had done an amazing job putting together this incredibly slick animation system with all these cool animations. But the problem was that if you have a game with a bunch of really high powered guns in it, and you also want to have martial arts, like why? Right? Like,
right.
You can run around and just kill people super fast.
Yeah.
And so what I kind of proposed to the team was, look, I want guns to be something that allows you to shape the tactical landscape, right? Help to kind of control it a little bit without them becoming overpowered, so that you also have to rely on hand-to-hand combat to be able to win.
Going close, yeah.
And so that was the design. Of course, there was pushback, right? Like, it's like, that doesn't make any sense, blah, blah, blah. But what we ended up with was a bunch of really cool sci-fi guns that each had a very distinct flavor, kind of relative to the hand-to-hand combat system. And then I managed to convince Steve to do Street Fighter style super moves, just because I love Street Fighter style super moves. And I was trying to kind of differentiate a lot of the enemy types so that they really felt different when you were fighting them, and they had cool, kind of signature moves. So yeah, there were a lot of threads, and a big part of my process was to kind of like see what they had, gather them up, and say, okay, here's how we're going to turn this all into a game. But the interesting part, the unspoken part, what a lot of people don't realize, is that Take-Two, the publisher at the time, had bought a vested interest in Bungie.
Right.
They owned a piece of Bungie, and when Bungie wanted to get bought by Microsoft, Take-Two was like, oh, hold on a second.
We own 17%.
We own 17%.
Or 20%, 19, I don't know, it was very close there.
Something like that. And so the deal, as I understand, was that, and because this is what we ended up living through, was that Take-Two said, fine, we won't block the sale to Microsoft, but we need to get Oni for our next quarterly profits, whatever that was. I don't even remember. And thus began the worst crunch I've ever been through in my life. And we took it super seriously for a bunch of reasons, not the least of which was people like you and the rest of the Bungie team, right, from Bungie East or the Chicago offices, had pulled up stakes and were relocating and kind of, moving across country. And so we at Bungie West took it super serious, like, okay, well, we better come correct, because we don't want to uproot these people's lives for nothing. Like, we don't want Take-Two to block the sale of this. And we understood that there was a quality bar. Take-Two had also kind of intimated that pretty clearly. Look, if you just give us, shit in a box, that's not going to fly. Like, we need a good Bungie game. So man, we just busted our ass to try to get that thing done. It was the worst crunch I've ever been through in, like you said, 30 years of game development. It was god awful.
Yeah, bad. It was brutal. It was pretty brutal.
But we got it done, and it's funny you should say that. You're super proud of it, because like, I still get emails like maybe once a year from people who are like, I love Oni, like, I love that game. And I'm like, thank you, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It cost us a lot of our soul, but I'm so proud of it.
It was so much fun to work on. It was cool because there was oh my gosh, his name just left my mind. The original guy, the guy who was doing music. They had a name. Oh, and I know him too. I'm going to kick myself. I'll correct this in the introduction to this thing. Uh, but he had already produced a bunch of really cool electronica, you know, EDM kind of stuff. It was really cool. It was super high tech, great stuff. And then he was done. Like he wasn't going to do anything. And I was in charge of, you know, directing the voice actors and casting and sound design and putting it all together and then, you know, creating the music score for it. And I thought it would be I'm going to do I'm going to have a contrast, sort of like between um, the kind of music that can play. So, like, especially for the fights and some of the real action scenes, I could use that EDM stuff. But then I could use strings and you know more Marty kind of stuff for some of the other bits of it. And so the it's a pretty unique soundtrack. If you listen to the whole thing, the soundtrack for me was unique because it has a lot of contrast in it. But yeah, and working with the story that you guys developed and the characters, um, and there's humor in the game too. I mean, what was the name? Was it the Big Brain? Was that
the
the
dead
big boss, the Big
the
Brain? No, what was
the
it?
deadly
The
brain.
Deadly Brain. Yeah. I don't know who wrote that stuff, but that actually cracked me up because he didn't have a voice. Was that you? Okay. The fun
Mm.
thing about the Big Brain is that it just had sort of electronic things that it beep boop bop bops when it was talking, and then there'd be text at the bottom of the
Yeah.
screen that translated what it was saying, and that was just hilarious because there's one point where it just goes boop burp, and then there's like a paragraph of translation.
Yes. Yeah, that was back when like people didn't try to stop you from putting funny stuff in there. I don't even know if you remember this, but we had a character in a welding mask at
Oh
one
yeah,
point.
sure. No, I remember the actor was Tim Dadabo, right? He
Yeah,
was so funny.
yeah.
He came running up to you.
We just took the sorry, somebody's okay, quiet, stop. I know I heard it too, but I don't know who it is, but leave him alone. Come on, come here. Come lay down.
The dog.
Yeah, sorry you guys. My
It's all
my
right.
poodle is she's worried that there's some kind of danger outside. It's okay.
There is, I'm sure.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, we had this character in a welding mask. We were looking for a really interesting kind of unique NPC to put in there. And so we put him in there, and I had written these lines for the character, and then it just struck me like, wouldn't it be funny if you couldn't hear what he was saying? He's just like, but Kanoko, the main character, seems to completely understand. She's like,
Completely
yes,
understand.
absolutely. Oh my God, yes, so
That
funny.
I remember when I came back up to Seattle. Well, I would come up to Seattle periodically and touch what was happening on the Halo team, and we would bring builds, or you know, you guys would send builds of where Oni was at the time because we were all, you know, playing it as we went. So I remember Jamie Griesmer coming to me, just cracking up. His face was red. He was laughing. He says, the guy in the welder's mask just came up to me. That is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Because it was so cool because the guy came running up. He was just an urgent thing. It was like, and
I I love that stuff.
yeah,
I love it if the game, if the developers get the opportunity to just be like, hey, listen, look, this is
it's a
something
game.
fun,
It's a
right?
game.
Like this is a gun in the game. Like we can enjoy this together.
Yeah, right.
We can enjoy this together. So anyway, yes, that was fun. The deadly brain, the little guy with the with the welder's mask. Honestly, that stuff when it came up, it's just because I think we were so delirious and nobody
You
was
say
like, no,
no.
Hardy, yeah, you can't do that. Like you can't do that. I was like, no, yeah, no, let's do it. And then people were like, okay, if you say
Yeah.
so,
Well, I
it's gonna
think
be great.
at least two of us were down there to help finish that thing up. One was Joe Staten. The other one was me. And then at some point, good old Alex Seropian even came down and was placing lens flares. Like that was
He
his job.
He was, yeah. That was really encouraging to see. Like the big boss of the big company. I mean, whatever, quote unquote, big company, sitting down like just like a grunt intern, placing lens flares manually in our
Yeah.
environment because the authoring tools were not that robust. And then I could send him bugs and be like, Alex, this hallway downstairs is missing its lens flares. He was like, Whatever, dude.
Okay.
Whatever, dude.
Yeah. And we got done with that game and it was I just thought it was such a great game. And I think the fans enjoyed it. Of course, there were two things I remember that we were like sad we couldn't do. One was the RoboCop mech, whatever that thing was called,
Yeah,
that
I think
we had
they called
shown in all the trailers, all the promo trailers. There was going to be this mech that was going to be so cool.
it.
Tell me the story of why we couldn't ship that mech.
Well, so there were a bunch of features that we put together, but the fact of the matter is that like the Iron Demon, which was
The
the name of
Iron
that
Demon, that's what it was
mech type
called.
character, and also multiplayer. Honestly, like
Yeah, yeah.
we
Multiplayer was
wanted
the other. I was going to say how sad we were about because we played multiplayer LAN all the time. I mean,
yeah.
it was fun. We had those arenas and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, it was fun. Problem was it would go out of desync so fast, and then the next thing you know, I think I'm hitting you, you think something else, and it was super frustrating.
yeah,
And I had to sit down with Michael, and we were talking about like the feature set of okay, like what do we need to kind of bring this home? And we didn't have an environment to support the Iron Demon, and we didn't actually have any animations. And so it would be so different to try to fight a robot, like just the rules of fighting a robot would be so different that everything considered, I was like, okay, I'd rather have humanoid enemies. I'd rather create humanoid bosses that are at least going to use the same kind of fighting mechanics that we've already developed rather than try to create something that is completely one off and completely distinct.
right.
And the conversation about multiplayer was even more heartbreaking because we're
Mm.
sitting there and we're talking about like this deadline that we're trying to get to and getting the game finished. And Michael's like, I like, what do we do? And I kind of looked right in the eye and I was like, look, we just got to cut the multiplayer part of it. We got to take all the resources that we would normally spend on that and repurpose them towards getting this done. And Michael was like, well, the fans,
We've already
everybody,
told them.
yeah, everybody's gonna be disappointed. And I was like, I get it, I do. But I mean, getting the game done, getting it finished to a relatively high quality level, for me, has always been a super high premium. Like, it's
Yeah.
just so
Yep.
important to ship. It's such an important thing. So it was a brutal choice. It was a hard choice. And since I was the new guy, they
Right.
could blame it on me and, be like, oh, okay, well,
I always blamed it on you, and I always blamed that the Iron Demon only turned right. It couldn't do anything but turn. I think that was the animation that worked. Is it could go and turn right. So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah, people who get into the game business need to learn. At some point, they'll all learn, but they should know that there are a lot of hard choices in the game industry. When you get to the point, or the most important thing is polish and shipping. You got to
Mm-hmm.
ship something that's polished and you have to ship something, which means you're going to be killing your babies at some point. It's so
Hey,
sad.
this is a pet peeve of mine. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you touched on this because I have a bunch of students. So I'm teaching game design and production, right?
Yeah.
It's one of my jobs right now.
Right.
I'm also on the Fortnite team, but
Oh,
but
cool.
but I also teach game design and production at the Academy of Interactive Entertainment in Seattle.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That sounds really cool.
It is
Go
super
ahead.
cool.
Yeah.
In any case, and I get a bunch of students in there all the time who want to do game jams, right? They're always talking about
Yeah.
game jams. And I've watched a bunch of game jam footage and, even watching them do it. And eventually I was just like, look, I'm going to be honest with you guys, because they'd show me like whatever busted hoopty thing that they made or almost made, right?
Almost
And
made,
they're
right?
like, what do you think? And I'm like, okay, look, from now on, anytime you're talking about a jam, you have to hold yourself to the standard of finishing the complete experience. There's got to be enough menu so that you can start and the game ends, right? There's got to be a starting condition. There's got to be a mechanics. There's got to be an end condition. Like, if all you do during a game jam is just build a bunch of stuff, you are wasting your time.
Yeah. You got to have it has to have a beginning to end arc. I totally agree. And it might be a
Absolutely.
lot shorter than you think, but that's what you got in. That's why you chose to do a weekend jam. So that's
Right.
it.
And the reason that I put such a high premium on complete playable experience is because of exactly what you said, which is it is crucial that you understand how to make compromises to get it done. you can sit there and be like, oh, well, I wanted to make this big thing, but I kind of ran out of time, so I just made this mushy pile of shit. And I'm like, look, that's not a game. And not only that, but you didn't learn any lessons about
Right.
how to make a game. All you did was practice kind of your skills of doing whatever it is that you want.
Right.
Don't do that. Like,
Yeah.
so whenever they're going to go off to do a game jam, I'm like, okay,
Better
fair
bring home
warning.
something that goes
Yeah,
from beginning to end.
absolutely. And it is fascinating to see how much sharper their skills get when they really apply themselves in that way. So
Yeah.
sorry,
I was
soapbox over.
yeah. Well, the Academy of Interactive Entertainment, it's one of those things where I have this pet peeve, and I've had it since day one. When I see in our industry, I think what are we under now? The entertainment, the ESA is the Entertainment Software Association, right? And before that, it was called the something software or something. I forget. I don't know whatever, but it has software in it all the time. And I'm like, the problem with using the term software is that engineers and software development techniques take up a higher priority than they should. Now, I totally understand all the different software development techniques and why they're important to software development. But software is a tool you use to make something else. What we make is entertainment. Okay, it's interactive entertainment. I feel like that's all we need to say. So I love the fact that you're working for the Academy of Interactive Entertainment, because that's what we make. And if you think you're making software, you're not, because you're not making a tool for someone else to use to do something else. You're making entertainment for people to interact with, different than you work when you're watching TV or movies or going outside to play baseball. Those are all entertaining things, but this is what the primary thing is: entertainment.
Absolutely. And the other thing, yes, and to pile on,
Yeah,
amen,
please do.
the other thing to pile on is I like to tell the kids, like, look, you could be a brain surgeon, right? But you don't have to be funny. You don't have to entertain anybody. You have a highly technical job that requires a lot of skill and it's incredibly high pressure. But you don't have to be entertaining when you do
Right.
it. Guess what? You do if you're going to make video games.
That's right.
Not only is it highly technically advanced, high pressure, right? You have to be very highly skilled. You also have to hit a bar as far as entertainment is concerned. It is, and I'm the last person to ever sit there and play tiny violin, because this is the only life I know. It is the only career I've ever wanted, and it fills my soul, fires my soul. But I tell them day one, I'm like, look, let me be honest with you. If you could do anything else, go do it. If you could walk away from this dumbass business, because this is the hardest, most brutal, most ruthless business, and and no matter how hard it is on you, ain't nobody care in the audience. They don't care how hard you had to work to make this game. All they care is, do they love the final product?
Exactly.
So you better understand that, like, yeah, it's not only is it soft, it is entertainment. I think you're absolutely right. Like, not enough emphasis is placed on that. The audience doesn't care how hard it was to get done.
No.
All they care about is how it makes them feel. So.
Exactly. Well, and I'm old enough, as you know, to have had a couple different careers. So, I was film and television and commercials, which was tough. We had crunches and we had tough times, and there were a lot of difficult things. But yeah, then I got into games, and it was like, oh, this can get even worse. But now, Hardy, I'm going into politics. I'm going to run for Congress. Like, what is wrong with me? What am I thinking? Like, is this going to go from bad to worse? Like, what's happening?
I mean, look, what they
I think
need
it's going to be easier. I think it's going to be a walk in the park.
Hey, look, I mean, Jesse Ventura was the governor of Michigan, right?
There you go. Yeah.
How hard could it be? I mean, Jesus Christ! Like, what does he have to recommend? I mean, Jesse the Body Ventura. He had a very, very short, successful movie career. One movie, Predator, I love it. And he was a pro wrestler for a little while. You got that guy beat 6 ways to Sunday, buddy. Come on. I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from Jesse the Body Ventura.
No,
I am a Predator fan.
Yes,
love that movie. However, look.
Have you seen the new Predator design, by the way?
Oh, good Lord! No, is there a new one?
There's a new Predator design that's coming out. I don't know if it's. I think it's for a movie. There's going to be a new movie Predator, and the design just was released. Somebody, I forget who I was talking to about it, but I looked at it and I'm like, ooh boy, I'm not. That's not going to go over well. That's my opinion.
Really?
So yeah, you should check it
Is
out.
it
Maybe you'll love it. I don't know. Who knows?
is it a
I didn't
lady
like the
predator?
design. Uh, yeah. I
Sorry,
mean, I don't
sorry.
know. I'm not going to make any
I
comment. You should
I
look at
re-
it, then you can tell me.
okay. I
Off,
retract the
off.
question. No, I loved Prey. I thought that was a really good Predator movie. Everything kind of an awful lot of the stuff before that didn't like it. But I liked Prey. I liked Predator One. I liked Predator Two. And I like Prey. And then everything else, I just sort of like pretend like it didn't happen. I'm just like, no, 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 no.
Well, this leads me into another thing. Okay, let's go on from finishing Oni, because the the little known fact was the Bungie West team is like, if you guys finish Oni, this is the way I remember it. You could fill in how it really was from your perspective. Uh, when you guys finish Oni, we're gonna move you up to Redmond. You're gonna move your families. You're gonna live in Seattle. We got great deals for you. You're gonna just love it up here, and then you will join Bungie, and you will stay as the Oni team,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys get to stay together as a team and work on whatever you want to work on as your next project. And I know Hardy's coming up with ideas, and if I remember correctly, it was a little game idea you had. And my memory was it was called Monster Hunter,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and you and the team were over in your own corner. You had your own section of the little office complex we had at Millennium E, I think it was called, in Redmond.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you guys were working on your own thing, and you guys would periodically sort of come over and see us Halo folks getting all twisted up. I was, of course, as audio director, I was going to work with everybody at the studio. So I was working with you on Monster Hunter in the earliest days. That's the way I remember it.
Yeah.
But the reality of this Halo thing isn't coming together as planned quite yet. And it's kind of important that it launches with the Xbox, and those dates were not going to move. So you guys were informed, yeah, that Oni team, we promise, once you come in, you get sucked into the Halo vortex. As soon as you're done doing whatever it is you need to do, you'll spin back out and be your own team again. Does
Yep.
that sound about right?
Yeah. That was the theory. Yes, that was the theory. I'm incredibly yes. That was the theory that yeah we were going to be able to do whatever we wanted and just be footloose and fancy free. And we were having so much fun. I was pulling video reference
I
and
remember all that.
pulling all this kind of stuff together. And
We could have done Monster Hunter, doggone it.
oh god, it would have been. I mean, it was a natural extrapolation of the stuff that we had built up to that point. We were talking about okay, well, we've got this cool fighting system with weapons. Imagine you're fighting much bigger enemies, like big monsters. Oh, it hurts my heart to think about it.
And people need to know that this was in 2000. This was before 2000, 2001, and it was
Mm-hmm.
before Monster Hunter came out, which came out what, 2003 or 4 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
And it
yeah,
was
yeah.
they didn't copy from anything
No,
you had
no.
done, but I remember you came up with the name, and I'm like, what's this game called? You're calling it's going to be Monster Hunter. I'm like, oh, well, that's like a code name, right? And you're like, no, that's the coolest name ever. And I'm like, it's Hardy, it seems a little on the nose to me, Monster Hunter. It seemed a little, but you were right. I should always defer to your wisdom.
Oh, Marty, it's the coolest name. I can see myself saying that, and pretty much that way. She's like, it's the coolest name ever. I think it's so cool. Yeah. Well, what was happening was that like the Halo team kept sort of needing those senior people to kind of come over and help stuff.
Yeah,
And to our credit, I want to just offer this.
sure.
Everybody on Halo or from Bungie West became the leads on the
I
Halo team.
know. They really were very important. Super
Yes,
important.
and
Steve Abeta, uh,
mhm, Dave Dunn,
Dave
right?
Dunn. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So many.
Chris Butcher. Oh my gosh.
Chris Butcher, yeah,
Jeez.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like so many really important players across the board.
Hmm.
And the rationale, I think really just being that our team dynamic, like our esprit de corps, and our kind of workflow and all the rest of that type of stuff was very strong. Like we were a very strong team working on Oni because we had gone through so much stuff. And they just were sort of like, okay, well, we're going to pull Michael Wu in and he's going to do this, and we'll pull Steve in and he'll do that. We'll pull Dave in, he's going to do this. And so we all kind of got, cannibalized into the Halo team. And it was great.
Were you and Michael the last two standing? Is that the way you were? Okay.
Yeah, we
You
were the
guys were
last.
still, you were the, the team leads, and you were going to hang on to that Monster Hunter project and keep it going.
Yeah. And so Jones and Seropian pulled us into the conference room. And just for the record, okay,
Yeah,
like
I want to know what they said in that conference room.
I was playing tons of. I mean, I love Counter Strike. Like, people ask me, like, what shooters do you, what do you respect? I'm just a huge Counter Strike fan. Love it, love it. And so I'd play it all the time. And
we played it a lot at the studio. That would be our go-to game. Even during Halo 1 development, we were playing Counter Strike in the cracks. I remember that.
Yeah, so hardcore. I love it. In any case, so we're playing it a bunch as we were kind of working on quote unquote Monster Hunter, and Jones and Seropian pulled me and Michael into the conference room, and Alex kind of looks me in the eye and he goes, guys, I have to tell you that multiplayer in Halo is cut. And I about lost my shit. I'm like, what? Like, you can't cut multiplayer? It's such an important part of we just cut it out of Oni. You can't do this to the fans. Like, they're gonna hunt us down and and kill us. Like, you can't do this. And it's so important and it's so good, blah blah blah. And Seropian and Jones is like, I'm glad to hear you say that, Hardy, because you and Michael are now responsible for putting it back in whatever form you can work out.
You have been blessed.
That's right. Me and Michael are both sitting there. It was such an ambush, right? We're both sitting there. We kind of look at each other and we're like, okay, mission accepted. Yeah, like, fine. Fuck you guys. Like, we're going to do it anyway. Like, and so we went off to like this little Mexican restaurant that was kind of right up there off of a 520, like right up there in Redmond. And because we knew nobody from Bungie really had a tendency to go there. And we sat down for 2 hours, literally writing on napkins with our plan for multiplayer. Like, all the stuff that we wanted. Yeah, just like, okay, this. And then we came back to the studio and he got busy basically trying to come up with a hack of tools so that I could create multiplayer content using the single player tools chain.
Now, I want you to keep going from that point, but I'm trying to remember exactly. Do you remember what month and year this was? Was this it had to be like, was it winter of 2001 or because we didn't move into the Millennium E building until January of 2001. I was still building my studio there, and we shipped in fall of 2001. I mean, the compressed time that we did this it's just insane to me thinking back on it.
Well, it is. And here's okay, sorry, bit of a like a left turn here. I actually once had a big time kind of producer from a Japanese company kind of asked me, like, Halo, that was pretty good. Like, what happened? How'd you guys do that? And my answer to him was, and I think I really think this is relevant, is that you had a bunch of developers, right? And we had done a bunch of work up to that point. If you think about Bungie East, you had, people who had done Marathon and they had done Myth and, they've done a lot of different things. And, you also had Bungie West, who had just learned kind of all these important lessons about production and how we're going to get stuff done or whatever. And then suddenly it was sort of like, okay, well, we can't do the open world RTS, right? We can't do the open world engine. We need to turn this into a more single player focused type thing for Halo. What do you do? And the answer came back kind of across the board, like, okay, well, if I had to do it over, I would do this, right? Like, I would do it like this. So you think about AI, audio, right? Like your music ideas, a lot of the ideas that we did about level design, so many of the things, it was sort of like, the personnel that was involved in that project were really primed because we had gone through so many experiences up to that point. There's an opportunity for us to sort of say, okay, well, if I had to do it over again, I'd do it like this. Mm-hmm. And the interesting other part of that, in my humble opinion, is ain't nobody looking over our shoulder to say no.
That's right. Right.
Right? Like nobody was looking over your shoulder to say, no, you can't do that. Nobody.
Well, we kept telling the folks above us at Ed Freeze through Alex Seropian, we would tell them, no, it's going according to plan. Everything is great. Don't worry about it. We're gonna it's wonderful. Just give us.
We got this. Yeah, no problem. And so for me, the fact that we had that interesting combination of kind of a lack of meddlesomeness from upper management combined with our opportunity to basically say, all right, well, if I'm doing it from scratch, I would do it like this, is in large part what really kind of led to, I think, the sum being greater than, or the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
In any case, but yeah.
And by the way, I just also want to point out that I think I'd never really put this together before, but the sort of tragedy for the Oni team to actually, and you were the one that had to say the thing, we're cutting multiplayer. It was such a amazing card for Jason to play into your heart.
Yes, absolutely.
I never really put that together before, but we wouldn't have multiplayer in Halo 1 if multiplayer hadn't been cut by you in Oni. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yes. Yeah, it was a brutal and savage maneuver on his part to play that card on me, and it 100% had the desired effect, which was like, no, I will kill myself to make this happen. He was like, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, is this the first time this has ever been revealed? I think this is the first time I ever really put together the intricacies of that little exchange.
I mean, I think I may have told like little bits of this story, but the fact that those things are kind of intricately linked together is super important. Yeah. Yes. Well done. You were the first to see the connection. You're clearly some kind of genius.
Yeah, of course. I need to hear that. As you know, that's in my contract with just about everybody I talk to, at least once per podcast. Okay.
Yeah, it's fair. Totally fair. So anyway, we made Halo. Yeah, we got sucked out of the Monster Hunter team. We made Halo, and then it was. I'll never forget the meeting where we're all sitting around doing the postmortem on Halo and getting ready for Halo 2. And we're sitting there and was like, okay, well, if we're going to do it again, like we got to do this and we got to do that. We got to do this. And some wiseacre raised their hand. I don't even remember who it was. And they're like, you guys, like, we just made Halo. Like, why would we do anything different? And I was just like, oh my God, no, please don't ever say that. Like, it was.
I had a conversation that reminds me right after we made Halo and it shipped and it became successful, like right out of the gate. Some biz dev type dude at Microsoft, for some reason, I don't know why I was having a meeting with him. Well, obviously it's because I was one of the upper echelon people. So obviously he wanted to have a meeting with me.
Obviously.
He goes, oh, yeah, like Marty, how did you guys, how did you figure this out? And I'm like, well, we're just a team and we're gamers and we want to make the next cool thing. We want to innovate. And we, as a team, when we see something that's really cool, that's what we want to make. So that's the magic formula. And he goes, yeah, but now you figured it out. You figured out the magic formula. It's Halo. So you just need to just do that again. And I'm like, no. I just told you what the magic formula was. It was the team coming up with the thing that everybody's excited about. And he says, well, but why would you do anything different now? Just keep doing that. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, yeah, here it is. That's the way the biz dev people think. They see the golden egg and they just want to make more golden eggs. They don't know how the golden egg was produced. And that's where I came up with Be Nice with the Goose. But that's another story.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, and you see this. I've seen this in a bunch of different places. I mean, I moved over at Microsoft to become a publishing design director of one of the publishing studios there. I was overseeing a bunch of projects. Eventually, I got recruited by Sony to go over and work on the SOCOM franchise.
Right, I remember
I was working on the PlayStation side, kind of overseeing the SOCOM franchise. And I'll never forget, I had a meeting with one of the Sony executive producers, where they were like, well, we want a new game, from the studio. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, we'll come up with a bunch of cool ideas. And they're like, yeah, no. We just kind of want a new SOCOM game because that's what you guys make. And I was like, look, this is a fully functional studio. We've got level designers, we've got game designers, we've got concept artists. Like, we can make anything. And they're like, yeah, no, you guys make SOCOM. Like, that's what you do. So just tell us about the next SOCOM thing. And it was kind of heartbreaking because I was just like, oh man, like, I don't know, what a weird trap to get stuck in, right?
Yeah.
And I had deliberately dodged it, honestly, with the Pac-Man thing. I don't want to get stuck making Pac-Man forever, and I don't want to
Right.
get stuck making really anything forever.
Right.
So
No, none of us did. Right.
yeah, no, I mean, you don't, right? Like there is a point at which you can, I don't know, you get kind of burned out on just doing the same thing over and over and over again. So, but in any case, yes, there you go.
Well, I was going to say then. So let's go back now to your time, because I think in the history of video games, that little nexus point where we're going to cut Halo 1's multiplayer. Like, I
Yes.
feel like the whole history of the Xbox and the history of Bungie and the history of Halo, that decision is so crucial. Like, if you hadn't have screamed, "No, I will not let it happen." I mean, if we hadn't shipped multiplayer in Halo 1, I just feel like the history of mankind would have changed in an instant. Um, it's it, I can't remember one of the first things I did, even all the way back in Chicago, when I would come over to hang out with the Bungie guys and be working on Myth 2, and then seeing what the new game was that they were working on that was all secret in the back room, and it was Halo before it was called Halo. The very first thing you could do is play multiplayer. It was just land up, and you could drive a warthog around and watch the inverse kinematics physics on the antenna vibrating and feel the suspension in the warthog. It just was so much fun. And then shooting each other and running around was a blast. So we knew that, and I think at the time it was probably even third person for the most part. I can't remember when. I think we might have switched back and forth between third person and first person, still not making a decision on where it was going to be. But like, we knew that multiplayer was an important thing, and you knew it because it was cut from Oni, and you knew it because you were playing Counter-Strike, and you knew it because you probably were playing, we were still probably playing some sort of primitive Halo multiplayer because we could in the studio. All the boxes were lined up.
Sure.
So the idea of it not getting its due diligence was just horrible. So but what I remember is then whenever month that was that you started working on it, whether it had to have been in 2001, maybe spring or late winter. I'm not sure. Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly when it was, but okay, so this is an interesting, perhaps this is interesting. I don't know. I think
It's
it's
interesting to me.
funny. No, the thing that's super interesting about that interaction, like between Soropian and Jones and me and Michael, was that they were like, okay, you got to kind of put it back in. And in that moment, that thing that I was talking about before, that like, okay, we got to ship, right, clicked in my head.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that Halo, up to that point, Jones had this big vision for what Halo multiplayer could be, which, in case anybody doesn't know, was actually like Battlefield. As a matter of fact, one time he told me personally, he was like, Hardy, they stole my game idea. Like they took Battlefield and they made it before, like, that's what Halo is supposed to be.
Wow.
And so he was like, and of course it makes perfect sense, right? Like, you're going to do campaign style operations with
Yeah.
combined arms and interesting vehicles and all the rest of that type of stuff. And I was like, nah, we ain't doing that. Like, we're going to throw all that shit out and we're just going to make a really, really fun party game. Matter of
There you
fact,
go.
I was like, in my head, right? Like the touchstone that I kind of had in mind was, I want a shooter game that could have been designed by Nintendo. I
Oh,
want it to
interesting.
be so clear and so fun and so intuitive that it could be like a Nintendo style party game. Like you're just going to sit around with your friends on the couch, hanging out, having a good time, just having a lot of fun. Game modes, right? The weapons, the pickups, like, even the power ups. I don't know if people necessarily know this or not, but power ups were me. I was like, I want power ups for multiplayer. And Jones was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, no, dude, we need to have power ups in the game. And Jason, okay, to his great credit, I'm going to presume he maybe still does, a lot of faith in my gameplay sensibilities. I mean, we shipped Oni, whatever. He trusted me to do that. And he has faith in my sensibilities. So when I told him I need power-ups, he was like, oh, okay, I guess so. So we made the power-ups and, put them into the multiplayer maps, and they were fun. And then the single-player guys figured out that they existed, and then they
Oh,
started to sprinkle them through the single-player maps. And
so
Jones
are
was
you
like,
telling me the overshield and the invisibility started in multiplayer? I did not know that.
nobody did. This is new, Marty. You
Yes,
are
I got it
yeah,
out.
yes, you were the first. Yes, they started in multiplayer, and Jones did
Wow.
not want them. And I
Oh,
believe it was Jamie or whoever it was who did the
it was Jamie because the first overshields are in Pillar of Autumn, the very
yeah,
first tutorial
yeah,
level, and
yeah,
that was Jamie's level. So I'm sure
yeah.
he saw those and like, I ain't letting Hardy have those. I'm taking those.
Jamie, you bastard. Yeah, yeah. As soon as I saw, I mean, remember running through that level at one point, and I was like, wait a second, that's an overkill power up. Like, ooh, I gotta use that. I'm gonna put that to work right now. Yes. That was really that's one of the things that I think is so cool about the whole process of working on Halo and working with the old Bungie was that good ideas would come out, right, and they would sort of infuse the team, and the
Yeah,
game would get better because of it. Like it would
yeah.
just get better across the board because of all that stuff. And another interesting example was I don't know. I don't want to whatever. I don't want to drag us too far off course here, but like working on the weapons, trying to figure out. Okay, I wanted a matrix of what all the guns in multiplayer were supposed to do, and I'm thinking about the plasma pistol, and I'm like, why the hell would anybody ever carry this dumb gun? It doesn't make any sense. And then I was like, okay, well, on our world we have guns, and then we have bullets, and then we have bulletproof vests, and then you have armor piercing bullets.
Okay.
Well, okay, if you are the Covenant and you have guns and you have shields, what do you do about somebody when you're fighting them with shields? Like what
Mm.
then what do you do? They're automated. Exactly. And so I put that overcharge on the pistol, and it suddenly gave, on the plasma pistol,
Pleasant.
gave that pistol like a super clear roll. And Butcher saw that and he goes, I'm putting that on a certain classic grunt. Like, there's going to be a guy that only does that. And I'm like, yeah, that's dope. And so that's the thing that I love about that. It's just like that, it's like, okay,
Hmm.
bring a new idea to the table, like put it into the mix. And then it just like the game just continues to evolve and get better because of that,
Mm.
all that stuff coming together. So cool. Like that,
Yeah,
that
and
is,
that's what I call that period Camelot in my mind because there was something so magical about the way the development happened. It wasn't like anybody would. Jason was clearly in control. One of my first guests that I had, a guy named Mike Hill, who I would highly recommend you watch some of his stuff. He's really really smart and makes great stuff. But he was talking about how a director's role is like this. Shield immunity shield, right? It's like it's not that every idea has to come from the director, but the director has to know and have a good enough vision that they can prevent a disease from getting in,
yeah.
and let the cool ideas pass into the system, and then the percolation and the development happens that way. And I think that's a good way to look at it because Jones was not, I mean, yes, maybe Jones was a certain amount of a control freak. I think all of us are in our own ways, but he would let ideas pass in. Uh, but he knew that there were probably some ideas that shouldn't come in. And, we'll never know what those things are, but with the ones he let come in, and then they rattled around and inspired other people. It was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely it's so funny because Jason, like I honestly don't know him very well. I really don't. I mean, we worked pretty closely together for a long period of time,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't really tell you about Jason the person, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. But one thing that really strikes me as interesting is how much freedom and trust he gave me to do stuff, but also was such a controlling person. Like those two things are super interesting to me. Like they're really fascinating. And like I mean, I went to him one day. So John Howard, the single player,
Yep.
kind of
John
lead
Howard. Yep.
designer,
Yeah.
supposed to be doing the guns, and we were playing the build. We were watching the guns, and they were just sucked. They just sucked, and they were not fun. And so I went to Jason one day, and I'm like, "Dude, the guns suck." And he goes, "Yeah, I know. I'm gonna take them away from John." I was like, "Okay, that's fine, but like I have a different need for the balancing scenario in
In
multiplayer than
multiplayer,
you have
right?
in single player." And he goes, "Okay, well, I guess we'll just branch the code. Like you will branch it."
Whoa.
So the single player and multiplayer data for guns is different. Like the guns are different. They're balanced differently. That's
This is where
another.
the pistol problem happened, right? The Magnum, because
It's
he
not a problem.
it's a feature. I get
It's
it.
a
I know.
feature. Look, I mean, you know what's funny is that like it is a feature because you think about Destiny with those like they're what do they call them, the hand cannons or whatever, right? Like people love a big old pistol that shoots like Dirty Harry. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fun. Like it's
Right.
nothing as like it's just like that just feels good. Feels better than shooting somebody with a machine gun. It's just
It
more
does.
fun.
I agree.
Yeah, so there you go. But in any case, yeah, and I think about that. Like I know that Jason was doing that kind of he was doing that editorial filtering that you were talking about very a lot,
Yeah.
constantly, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, no, this, that, or whatever. And I just think about some of the stuff that got in, right, from me, things that I thought was
Right.
important or that I was pushing for. And I don't know, I'm really grateful that like it that he had that kind of faith. Either that or he was too busy to watch. Like,
Well, I
you
think
know,
it's just probably a combination of both. But like I think that he would see the potential of something and let it come in, and then once it developed on its own. But I still remember there was a point where I remember Joe walking around the studio with like a little placard on a sign, and it said "Banshees are multiplayer vehicles too," because I think the Banshees were going to get cut or something, and he just was like, "You please don't cut Banshees from multiplayer." So that's what I don't know. I'm not saying that was Joe's idea, but like I was with him on that. I thought, yeah, Banshees need to be in there. So
yeah, I mean, absolutely. They are super cool. I think the only reason I might have been lobbying against them was
oh,
because of the
interesting.
control freak aspect, right?
Sure.
Like
Well, you could get
anytime
too
you
high in the map. You could go outside of it. Yep.
you
There you
could
go.
go outside of things, yeah, and then trying to visually resolve the entire map so you can fly everywhere. It's
Yeah.
hard, and I'm like,
Yeah.
there's only so I mean, when we first started, it was just me. I was the
Yeah.
only one who was sitting there modeling, environments. I was sitting there trying to figure out like how to make stuff in 3D Studio Max. Like, how do I even make this? Like, oh, this is the extrude function, right? Like, oh, that's cool. I'll make a map based on the extrude function.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
until we eventually hired Chris Carney, and everything
Well,
turned to
Chris
shit.
Carney takes credit for just about everything. I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he said Hardy was struggling. He had no idea what to do. Chris came in immediately. Hardy's like, "Yes, please design all the maps. You're the man. I give it all to you." Do you
Yep.
want to? No, that's not what he said. If you watch what he said, we had a great conversation about my memory of how Chris Carney got hired. And then Chris was like, "I love your story. That's not what happened, but your story's great." So he told his side of the story, and then I talked to you, and I think between the three of us, there's a very interesting story there. But the one part of the Chris Carney story that I never had heard before was the mysterious Microsoft dude that just showed up. Could you explain that part? Because I think
Gladly,
I
yes.
had already talked to Chris because it was at a Sputnik meeting, and he said he wanted to work for Bungie. He'd always wanted to work for Bungie. He had been rejected, I think, in Chicago. And so he sent his stuff. I think I gave it to you, and then you kind of like, well, I'm not really interested. And then what happened?
Yeah.
Uncle
he
Hardy.
he sent his stuff, and I looked at it, and he was doing, I think, his master's in virtual environment design or something like that, like some architectural thing.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, and I was like, okay, I mean, that's whatever. Like, it was clear he'd never actually built virtual spaces for like lots and lots of users to use at one time.
Right.
And so I said as much. I was like, look, this is cool, but I think, you obviously have a lot to learn. Keep studying, keep trying, little engine, and, you'll get up that hill, get back in touch with this at some point in the future. And so he started to sort of say, like, well, what is it that you see that I have to learn? Like, what am I missing? And I tried to answer his questions for a couple of emails, but I had a lot to do. Like, I was busy. I couldn't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like
Talk to
help
the
him.
hand.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to the hand. So I stopped replying. And then one day I was walking back from lunch, and there's a guy sitting at my desk. Now, he's not a Bungie guy. I know everybody at Bungie, right?
Right. There's
And
only
we are
30 of us.
behind. That's right. And it was behind the magnetic security doors. So he ain't supposed to be there neither. I know that too. And so as I come walking up, I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, listen, I hope this isn't weird,
That
but
ship sailed, buddy.
yeah, she's long sailed, long sailed. But I am a friend of Chris Carney, and he sent you these questions, and you never really got around to answering them. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, so I don't want to be any trouble, but would you mind, like, could I just write down your answers so that I could give him the answers? And yeah, exactly. And I'm like, you said you were hoping this wasn't weird, and it's just going stranger, like, by the moment. So I was like, I think in the moment I was like, no, dude, look, I'm not going to make you sit here at my desk for half an hour writing down answers. Like, I will reply to Carney. Okay, I will reply, but this is the last time. And we had hired this freelance artist who was just a super freak. Like, this dude was just bad shaboomy. Like, he was not good. And as soon as we could get rid of him, right? Like, Michael was like, okay, yeah, you can fire him. I'm like, thank you. Thank goodness. We had a space open, right? We had a rec to hire an artist to help us. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, I mean, the persistence of this dude has got to mean something, right? Like, this
Mhm.
person was not willing to be put off by talk to the hand. He sent his homie to get answers to the questions.
And I think he
It's
bugged me a couple. I might have come over and like, hey, are you going to talk to Chris Carney again? And you were like, shut
sure you
up.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marty, I'm busy. So there's clearly an undercurrent in our relationship, Marty. Like,
It
there's
is.
something
There
about
is.
that.
We're both too busy to talk to each
Hey,
other.
so anyway, so I sent him a design test. I was like, look, we're trying to hire somebody, and to his great credit, he did a great job on the design test, like answering it from afar. So we brought him in for an interview, and he showed up in business casual with like a leather little presentation thing,
Mm.
like an architectural presentation thing with renders of his answers to the design test. I'll never forget, the test was called Iron Mountain. I was like, look, I want a level for a multiplayer game that's like an Iron Mountain. Okay, you're going to assault this Iron
Oh.
Mountain. And so he had come up with this big backstory, and he had a little layout for it, and made like little fake trees and a little river, and oh, it's so cool. And I was just sitting there, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, like, this, he just knocked it out of the park. And I'm like, fuck, we got to hire this guy. So we did. That was the
Another
origin of.
amazing decision on your part that changed history because he became such an important part of Bungie's future multiplayer. And then I don't know if you realize this, but he was one of the main sort of guys behind working with Marcus on Reach,
Oh,
single player stuff,
oh,
not just multiplayer, but single player too. So
I'm not surprised. Carney was a super talented kid, or super talented man. I can't call him a kid, but I call everybody kid. So,
that me.
but yeah, except for you. But I mean, he's super talented, and I
Yeah.
really honored the fact that he did such a great job on that interview, to the point where I still use the example of him to my students to this day. Right, I will tell them the story about extreme persistence.
Yeah.
If you belong in games, you can find a way in. And
Right.
if somebody tells you you don't, well, it's up to you to believe them or not. right? It's
Right.
up to you to decide, are they right or are they wrong? And what
Hmm.
are you going to do about it one way or the other? So,
Right.
but here's where it gets a little weird. Okay?
Okay.
This is my problem with
Okay. Oh, we
whoever
all have a lot of problems with Carney, but go ahead.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. I mean, Jesus, look at like the kid's a Bengals fan for God's sake. Like that's, I mean, gets any worse. I'll tell you about the Bengals thing too.
And a Reds fan too. We used to talk about that, but that's okay.
Dear God, that's awful. So
Yeah. Well,
anyway, so Halo 2, the Halo 2 team asked me to come back from my publishing duties to help ship Halo 2.
yep.
And of course, I
I
was
remember
like,
the
hey,
single
look,
player level you did. I remember that one.
you have my axe. I will show up anytime you ask me.
Yes.
So I showed up. And I happened to talk to Chris. I was like, hey, Chris, they working on the multiplayer. He was like, yeah, Carney style. Like, yeah. And I was like, how's it going? And he goes, oh, it's going really good. We're doing we're doing adaptations of some of the kind of design principles that like you did in some of the old stuff. And I'd like to show you. And I was like, oh, I would love to see that. Like, I'd love to see it. Now, okay, for me, that means something different. That doesn't mean like I would like to see it if you have time, or gosh, I'm interested, but I might forget about this later. No. When I say that, that means this is now something that has to happen just to
Yeah.
satisfy my own obsessive need to have control. And so over the course of like a month, right, I'd be like, hey, Chris,
Can I see what you
got a
did?
minute to sit down and talk about this stuff? And finally, one day, he just goes, he looks at me, he's mad. I don't know, maybe he had a bad minute or something. He says, you know what, Hardy? You don't have control of this process, and you're just going to have to be used to that. Like, you're just going to have to get used to it.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, this I brought in to this culture. Like, I brought this on myself.
It's
I
on your
should have
head.
never hired you, you shit. And I went back to my desk and I was like, I'm not in charge of multiplayer this time. I, I got no power to flex on this.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I wouldn't do it even if I had. Like, it's, whatever. He's going to handle it. He's going to do his own thing. So, but yeah, Carney, like, he got his dig in on me. Like, that hurt my soul. But,
Oh.
maybe I had it coming because there were a bunch of times on Halo multiplayer, in the very first one, where I would be like, this needs to happen. And Carney was like, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do that. For example, what's the level? What's the two tall sides? God, what it's called? I'm trying to think of what it's called. Anyway, that was Chris's first level. And he made it. Now, okay, anyone who's ever like seen Carney on camera, you might not know this, but he's only about like that big. Like he is not a statuesque man. He is not a towering figure. He's pretty small. And so he made the tower. I can't think of what it's called. I'll remember. In any case, he made this level, and when you're running through it, like you could jump and you would hit your head on the ceiling, right? Like you'd be like, like your little dude, and I'm like, Chris, it's too short. He goes, no, it's fine. Carney style. Like, no, it's fine, it's
Yeah.
fine. And finally, I was like, Chris, I have responsibility for the levels, okay? And I'm telling you, I'm not asking you that we're going to scale this whole thing up and we're going to scale it a little bit bigger so that people can't jump and hit their heads on the ceiling. So mad. Oh, I mean, whatever. Like everybody gets mad at me all the time. Anyway,
Was that Battle
but we
Creek?
did. No, it was. God, hang on, I'll figure it out. I can
Oh,
look
okay.
it up. No, it was
It's
Prisoner.
Prisoner.
That was the one.
Oh,
Prisoner.
yeah, that one. Sure.
Prisoner. I'm like, yes, Prisoner.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. He did talk about Prisoner. I think he doesn't feel like it's one of his best maps. I think
I mean,
I
it
had
was one
fun
of
with
his
Prisoner.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Look, I mean, shit. I mean, Rat Race isn't a really good map either, but we made it at the time because
Yeah.
I just figured out how to use the extrude function, and I'm over it now. Like,
Oh,
I'm like,
that's
hey,
very
look,
good.
yeah. I'm like, oh, look, you
Well,
can extrude these
well,
hallways.
it's
That's
funny
cool.
because I remember that was one of the other fun things about Bungie is that we were so desperate at times that anybody who showed some initiative, like Peter
Marks.
Marks. Oh, what a great guy! Rest in peace, Peter.
Rest in peace.
Yes, he was just on the community team, and he
Hmm.
saw you guys were working on multiplayer. He was playing multiplayer. He was testing the maps and stuff. And because he sat not too far from me, he started working on the tools and trying to do something. I think he would come over to you and say, "Hey, I'm going to try to make something," and you allowed him to, sort of jump in and make some stuff. And I think you and he made Hang 'em High together, right? Is that how
Hmm.
that worked? Or
Yeah,
am I wrong on that?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're correct. Yeah. I mean, Seropian actually told me that Peter wanted to do that. Right? He's
Mm,
like, look, this person's on our he's on the community team, but he would really like to learn more about level design. Can you
yeah.
help? And so we did. We were working through kind of ideas and stuff like that. And he and I worked a lot on Hang 'em High together, kind of side by side. Whatever, just turning it into kind of the final form. And here's another little story that a lot of people don't necessarily know is that after we kind of got it into pretty good shape, it was dark as inside that building.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
because the ceiling was closed. Like the whole
oh,
thing was
that's
closed.
right. Yeah.
And we're sitting there looking at it. He was like, "How are we going to light it?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't want to put lights all over the thing. It's going to look really bad." And then I looked at him. I was like, "Actually, kind of a crazy idea." And we just cut a big hole in the roof, right, to let the sunlight in. And
Let the
then
sun
we're looking at it.
shine.
Yeah, and I was like, "No, no, no! You got to cut it the other way so you could see the halo as it's going across." He goes, "Oh
Oh,
yeah, let's do that." So
oh,
that's
wow.
why the lighting solution to Hang 'em High is what it is, because we wanted a quick and dirty solution to light the whole space and use kind of environmental light rather than trying to place a bunch of lights and
And
things.
Hang 'em I think did he do Chiron by himself, or did you take some of the blame for that?
I take 100% of the blame.
Oh, do you?
That was a
Okay.
Yeah, it was another Hardy so we had the tracker, yeah, the motion
I know
tracker,
there
right?
were some people who really like Chiron, but I couldn't figure it out. I just never liked it.
The idea that I had
Okay.
was, wouldn't it be interesting if you had something kind of like what the military uses for their training setups, right? But for Spartans. So if you think about it, like Delta Force or SEALs or whatever, they have like little fake towns and places where they're going to do like ambush and kidnapping scenarios and stuff like that. So they set them up like these little practice scenarios, and then they run through it. Like, okay, now the hostage is being held here, or he's up on the second floor, or
Hmm,
he's
hmm.
in the basement, whatever, all that kind of stuff, right? So that was the idea. Imagine that there was a series of little modules that were training setups for the
Okay.
Spartans to do what they did. Peter didn't. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, like little military villages, like, okay. And so then I was like, okay, well, just think about them like little tactical puzzles, right? So never mind whether or not they make any sense as training setups, right? Like military training setups. Just think of it like a fun tactical puzzle. Well, he was like, I don't really know what you're talking about there either. So combine the fact that he didn't quite grok what it was that I was talking about with the other crazy idea, which was,
Which is
wouldn't it be
puzzle.
cool?
Yeah.
You had this big map that was only linked by teleporters, so you had to kind of track where people were using their teleporters. Yeah, it was. It's it didn't. Let's just say it didn't come together the way ever. Like it kind of saw. I saw it in my
Sometimes,
head.
yes, those things happen.
But you know what? I hear people. Some people like it, and
I
that's
know, I know. I mean,
I.
it's like you probably don't know this, but is it snowbound? Is that the one? Is that what we called it on Halo 1, the snow level?
Sidewinder.
Sidewinder, yes. Um, so I had my own way of playing Sidewinder, which I like and nobody else in the world likes, which is one-on-one, no motion tracker, sniper and pistols only.
Oh yeah.
And you play with it, you have it be timed. So you put your own time limit on it. So it's like, so first 1 to 3 deaths, or whoever has the most deaths after like 15 minutes, because it takes forever to play this way. But the
Yeah.
most of the time you're just sneaking around trying to find the other person on this huge map. And I
Yeah.
remember telling Joe how much I thought it was fun playing this way. He hated it.
Oh really?
So every time he played against me, he would just get into a warthog and just do, donuts out in the middle, trying to draw my fire because he knew I would miss with a sniper rifle. Then I'd give my position away, and he'd immediately teleport to me and kill me. So anyway, I liked it because it made the whole map a really tense experience. You were just constantly worried that you'd turn around a corner and see the guy would be right there because there was no motion sensor. Anyway, I'm the only one who likes it that way, but that's what I think was fun about Halo and all the Halos. You know what, Hardy? It is, we're a little bit over because it's so much fun to talk to you, and this can't be the only time we talk. It's one of these times I'm going to have a few people on together, like you and Carney and Max or something all together. And it'd be, I think that would be a blast, but,
that would be amazing. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so do you want to hear one last Carney story or are we?
Yes, please go ahead. Sure.
Well, you were talking about Sidewinder.
Yeah.
So Carney comes to me and he goes, "Hey, Hardy, I had a nice idea for the Sidewinder map." So he takes me down there. There's in the middle of the interior section, there's those bars.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like the little bars that you can see through, but you can't walk through.
Walk through, right?
And he's like, "Watch this!" And he's got the flag, and he drops the flag, and it passes through the bars. And he goes, "You see what I mean?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I get it." He goes, we can pass stuff through this back and forth, right? But nobody can stop you because they'd actually have to try to run all the way around to get it." And he goes, "We got to save this for when a multiplayer map is going on, and we're going to call it Bangalania." And I'm like, "Okay, Bangalania, that's the call." So whatever, a couple of months later, we're sitting there and we got challenged by what was, they called themselves the Deep Ocean Team. They were a group of players at Microsoft. After Halo released, we got an email, the multiplayer team got an email saying, "Dear Bungie, you guys are big fish in a small pond. We are the deep ocean. You made the game, but we are the masters. So why don't you let us, we're going to come over, we're going to hang a beating on you." And so we're all sitting there like, sure, come on in. So in the middle of the match, we're just hammering these poor fools, like just beating them like a rented mule. And Chris and I kind of look at each other, and he goes, "Bangalmania," and I'm like,
I love it.
"I got you, fam." And so we pulled Bangalmania, and that was when they all rage quit. They were just like, "Yeah, that's not fair." Bangalmania play just broke the deep ocean, dude. It was the end of it.
That sounds like the title of a book. Bangalmania beats the deep ocean. That spectacular. Hardy, awesome. We could go on forever. We just got up to your moment of getting done with, you talked a little bit about going on to other things, but like, hey, come on, we had to like uncover some of the secrets of early Halo and Oni development. That was too much fun.
So much. Yeah, there is a lot of stories. A lot of stories. And you are fun to talk to. I like talking to you. It's fun.
Well, Hardy, we're going to do this again. I promise, because I don't have that many friends. I got to just keep using the same ones over and over.
You got a lot of fans, though.
Oh, we got some fans. We love the fans. All right, Hardy. We're going to say goodbye for now, and thanks so much for coming on, and we'll see you guys all next time. Thanks.
It's an honor.